out of curiosity, I viewed Michael Mann's LA Takedown. To my understanding, this was the telefilm predecessor to his 1995 acclaimed feature Heat. We have a video up on Heat if you're interested in my expanded upon thoughts on Heat. Today we're just going to be focusing on LA Takedown. It's easy to potentially solely appreciate LA Takedown as the prototype for Heat. There's a novelty factor in witnessing how Mann attempted to extrapolate his cinematic vision via the reduced scale that is television production. And even though I believe this was... No, I was for a moment, for some reason I thought this was HBO, it was NBC. Maybe if it was HBO he would have had more resources, but that's just a cliche associated with that. I'm not an American, I can't flick the channels and tell what the production values are apart. I just know that The Sopranos and Game of Thrones were slightly better than the average garbage coming out of television, but not overly so. The Song of Ice and Fire are good books that helped the Game of Thrones television show for a little bit. Anyway, the point is, we get the telefilm aesthetic attempting to... Something's trying to burst out of that television film aesthetic into something truly cinematic. At times, during some of the action sequences, it really works. And I almost like the rawer flavor of what's going on. It's almost as though what's happening in LA Takedown is closer to what we'd see if we saw this happening on the street. A robbery in ski masks, or the bank heist without the edits and the kinetic stimulation of the senses going on with the post-production schema of Heat and the sound design and all of the attempts to stimulate one's nervous system and to communicate the sensory input of some of the players in the frame, whereas LA Takedown is closer to faked cinema verite at times, right? Not really. Obviously, it's trying to be a thriller, although it does. Maybe it's just due to the virtue of the quality of the cameras. It can sooner feel as though it's taking place outside rather than in Hollywood. But as has been pointed out many a time, I've no doubt. I've seen it in reading summarizing reviews here on Wikipedia, and also in comments on the YouTube video. You can view LA Takedown on YouTube. That's how I viewed it, actually. The acting is not particularly impressive or believable, and there are many monologues. It's very TV cop, where's the line, man, sort of melodrama, right? And I'm not the biggest fan of Pacino's performance in Heat as it is, or De Niro's. It's kind of generic. The script's kind of crummy. I went over this in my review. We can. I don't need to repeat it here. I don't think, and I don't think anyone really needs me to. Frankly, what we have is two lesser performers, and Pacino and De Niro sold a lot of silly people that they were good performers in Heat, but no one's gonna sell the cast of LA Takedown as quality thespians, I'm afraid. In any case, LA Takedown is where the grainy and more stocky, blocky nature of the television production can produce something that feels closer to outside, like it's operating as though it's a functional, budgeted, independent production, rather than with Heat you can get something that feels perhaps effectively transcendent, although it's not potentially an accurate illustration of that kind of traumatic experience of being within the moment of a gunfight. I think it's building up to a moment wherein we reach that start of Saving Private Ryan moment, which is an impressive sequence. I actually don't care for the rest of Saving Private Ryan, just because the stabbing sequence is quite effective too, but near the end. But I don't like how the philosophy of that sequence seems to weave its way through the melodrama of that film, and it's constantly poking at you. You're meant to be feeling this, you're meant to be feeling that. When it's simulating something as horrifying as a violent battlefield, that's one thing. When it's storytelling, and the 90s is full of this, with your garbage Shawshank Redemptions and your Forrest Gumps, and pretty much most films that won Best Picture that year, with the exception of Silence of the Lambs, was great, obviously, and Schindler's List. Well, speaking of Spielberg, Schindler's List. Spielberg could get that right. Obviously, Schindler's List is a film that speaks for itself. Obviously, he knows how to be tasteful. In any case, moving on, but something about LA Takedown's usage and capturing of violent kind of criminal activity is that it sooner resembles what it looks closer to what a TV camera would be capturing, just due to the resolution of the video employed. And so in that respect, LA Takedown can feel like something that's happening outside and not in Hollywood, as I said. And it can, though people I think people who were more familiar, who lived in Los Angeles, were always very impressed with how he brought that city alive. I've heard that commented about The Big Lebowski as well, actually. Like how people talk about this in relation to Dirty Harry in San Francisco, or Vertigo of San Francisco. What a tradition. Anyway, but with LA Takedown, it does still it's still bursting at the seams. There's still an attempt to have that kind of kinetic editing philosophy. It's just not as suited or appropriate or permitted for television. I'll endorse LA Takedown, although it's, in some respects, I prefer its modesty, although Heat is a more impressive production ultimately. Go to the Heat video to learn my thoughts on Heat, because I don't adore the film, but I admire a lot about it. I don't like the script, but the telling of it is absolutely spellbinding. I'm more of a Collateral, Miami Vice, Manhunter, Black Hat kind of guy. Anyway, that's Michael Mann for us today. Thanks again immensely. Anyone who has viewed all of this, appreciate it very immensely. Thanks again, my good and dear friends.